The United States Supreme Court today deciding that it will not take up Ghislaine Maxwell's request for an appeal. This on the first day of the High Court's new session. Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's former associate, serving a 20-year prison term on charges including sex trafficking. Her lawyers had argued that she shouldn't have been tried or convicted. In the Oval Office today, President Trump asked if a pardon is on the table. And this is how he responded.
I haven't heard the name in so long. I can say this, that I'd have to take a look at it. I would have to take a look. Did they reject that?
She wanted to appeal her conviction.
And what happened?
They said that they were not going to hear her appeal.
I see. Well, I'll take a look at it. I will speak to the DOJ. I wouldn't consider it or not consider it. I don't know anything about it. So, but I will speak to the DOJ.
The Justice Department had encouraged the Supreme Court not to wade into the case. With me now, Scott Bolden, former D.C. Democratic Party chairman, NewsNation political contributor, and Bill McGinley, former Trump White House cabinet secretary. Happy Monday, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Why didn't Trump just say no?
Because he wasn't prepared for the question. He's never going to just take
Why didn't Trump just say no?
What's that?
Why didn't he just say no?
Because he says he's going to talk to the DOJ. The DOJ told the Supreme Court not to get involved. The DOJ is going to say no, and he'll comply with that.
Trump loves himself and can't say yes or no, and he wants to look at everything. But what preparation, Bill, do you need when Ghislaine's name, Maxwell's name comes up to be able to say whether I'm going to pardon one of the greatest sex traffickers in the history of America? The answer should be no, and he just can't bring himself to say that. He put her in minimum security prison now. It's easy to anticipate that at some point in time, as long as she keeps saying that Trump's not in the files or that Trump isn't in there in a negative way in these files, then good things are going to happen for her, and he thinks he can get away with it because MAGA isn't going to leave him over this issue.
I got to respond to that. There is no evidence that the president did anything wrong.
I didn't say there was.
But you keep bringing it up as if he's part of some sort of conspiracy down there. I know it's a Democratic talking point.
Well, Maxwell said he wasn't.
The House has been bringing witnesses before the committee. Everybody's coming out and saying nothing about Trump. And if the DOJ under Biden had anything on Trump, it would have come out before the 24 election.
Then there was this. As a part of that whole response, Bill and Scott, the president volunteered this information.
I'll look at it. I have a lot of people who have asked me for pardons. I call him Puff Daddy has asked me for a pardon.
But she was convicted of child sex trafficking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to take a look at it. I have to ask DOJ.
All right, so in the middle of the Maxwell answer there, he all of a sudden brings up that Diddy asked him for a pardon. This had been, I believe, like TMZ might have been the first one to put this out there, that this was a possibility. What would you tell Trump here?
Don't give it to him. Don't give it to him. Don't even commute. Let him serve the sentence. And I think that's what Trump is, Diddy was just sentenced to over 4 years.
Over 4 years, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Trump is not going to interfere with that case. Diddy's going to go to jail. He's going to serve.
Well, what's he going to do with Maxwell then? Would you give him the same advice?
Say no.
Okay, so here's what's really interesting about that clip from a legal standpoint is that the president is publicly telling you he's going to consult with DOJ. That's highly inappropriate, or at least non-traditional, because normally DOJ prepares these various requests. The submissions can be very complicated and long, and then they bring him this material to talk with him, or they make recommendations. Here, Trump has not done that at all in his two terms so far. He has just decided who he's going to pardon and who he's not going to pardon without the background.
They're going to follow the proper protocols.
They never
DOJ
do.
Pardon Counsel,
Yeah.
send it over to the White House counsel's office, who will look at it. If they think that it goes to Trump for his consideration.
Case. You'd agree, not in every case.
It didn't happen in Biden's case. Biden pardoned thousands, including violent criminals. And now we know that they didn't follow the proper protocol.
The substance of it. I'm talking about the process, the fact that you have a president.
I'm talking about process as well.
With DOJ.
Right. And then there's this as well. I mentioned it was the first day of the United States Supreme Court term. Going into it, there was news about the person who was convicted of trying to assassinate Brett Kavanaugh. 8 years was the sentence. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, basically saying the other day that they're going to appeal this. We will be appealing the woefully insufficient sentence imposed by the district court, which does not reflect the horrific facts of this case. What's going to happen here?
I think the DOJ is going to appeal, and I hope that they get a tougher sentence for this guy. We need to send a deterrent message. We need to end this political violence now. If you're going to engage in political violence and go after public officials, you need to serve the time. And it needs to be an appropriate amount of time, not some reduced sentence because the judge...
I did a double take, Scott, when I first heard 8 years. I've been trying to assassinate a Supreme Court justice, and then 8 years, and maybe you get out early because of, you know...
Well, it sounds really bad, but that 8-year sentence, as I understand it, is within the federal sentencing guidelines. The 30 years being at the top end and even lesser being at the bottom end. And here, the act was not committed. This was an attempted assassination. I'm not belittling it at all. What I'm saying is it's going to be very difficult for the Court of Appeals or even the Supreme Court to overturn a sentence that's within the federal sentencing guidelines. We'll have to see.
If we're going to get out of this cycle of political violence, those who engage it, plan it, finance it, and coordinate it are going to have to be held accountable.
That sentence won't change that. What we need to do is consultants like us, as well as elected officials, need to modulate their terms, right, and consider whenever they're in debate what nut is out there listening to us and then going and taking on a political agenda.
The message needs to be sent. It needs to act as a deterrent.
We'll have you back later in the show.
Won't be overturned.
We'll talk about what's going on in Portland and Chicago. Bill, Scott, two of the best legal minds in this town. Thank you both. Appreciate it.